Can you hear me?
Waiting for the lawyer to join. Hello, hello, hello.
Can you hear me?
The
How
law.
are you, sir?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yeah,
me
very
too? Is it?
clear.
Am I? Yeah. Am I clear? Is my audio very clear?
Yes, it is very clear. Is this better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's everything?
Thank you for honoring this invitation. I'm really appreciative of you sacrificing your time. I'm sure there are a lot of other things you could be doing at this time, but you've put those aside to come live with me to address some burning, concerns. These are pain points, as a real estate expert on a day-to-day basis, interacting with people, educating them on the importance of real estate investment, whether houses, land, there's this concern that keeps popping up, and I felt the best way I can help my clients, we can help people, is to bring an expert like yourself in the legal profession to shed light on what does the law say about some of these concerns, which I believe can help people make informed decisions, because it's painful when people leave money on the table. Like we know real estate everywhere is very good, but how real estate perform in one city, will be different from how it performs in another city. For instance, real estate in Abuja or Port Harcourt or Calabar, these locations are very good. Matter of fact, statistics have it that the housing deficit, these are top 5 states where the huge housing deficit. Of the 28 million housing deficit, these states, have the huge chunk of that people needing accommodation, So I believe people are changing themselves when, they leave a particular location and want to go and, buy land in some remote villages somewhere that you don't know when development is going to get there, and looking at rural urban migration, people generally gravitate to where there are opportunities. So why leave where people go to? For instance, Lagos, the number of people that flock into Lagos on a daily basis, you now leave that kind of location and go to other location. But can we blame them? No. And this, I believe, these concerns and this apathy that has resulted in a freeze in Lagos real estate is on the backdrop of there was a statement somebody made, I think towards the last election, and that statement has really created a lot of problems. You hear people saying, what I have in Lagos, I even want to sell, So I felt it would be very, very, very useful to have this chart, not just what I feel now, but get the legal perspective of what the law says, for someone that is a non-indigent or someone that is non-resident, what does the law says? So that's the essence of this conversation. And I believe at the end of this conversation, we should have been able to, shed light and bring some clarity and maybe some kind of reassurance. I don't know whether we can say something like that, to help people when it comes to making decisions about where they need to be investing in today's real estate market. Thank you very much, Lawyer Ayo. So today I have with me my guest, barrister and solicitor Ayodele Ajibola. Myself, I'm a real estate expert. My name is Babatunde Ajibola. You'll be wondering, what's the tie? There's no other person I would like to have on this show than my brother. He knows his onion. He's the guru when it comes to some of these things, and I believe he's going to do justice to this topic. Once again, the topic we're talking about today is, I asked him, are there any legal restriction on ownership of real estate by a particular class of persons in Nigeria? Class of persons, whether non-indigenous, for instance, somebody from the east, or somebody from any other tribe, trying to invest in another, location in Nigeria, a city in Nigeria. So this is what we'll be talking about today, and there will be questions our lawyer will be preferring answers to. So I'll leave lawyer here to say something, then we dive into some of these questions.
Okay. Good evening, Babatunde. My boy, how you doing today?
Good evening.
Okay, it is my pleasure
very well,
to be on this call. It's quite an interesting topic, and I believe that a lot of people are itching to also learn, from these topical issues. You are doing a lot of people a favor by bringing these forward to be discussed, and it is my pleasure to talk about some of these things. Just like you mentioned, real estate is I would even put it as one of the most lucrative investment that anybody can venture into. All right. Apart from being a lawyer, I'm also into real estate myself, and I do it big time, and I also encourage my clients to also do real estate, because I will tell you, I've not seen, any investment that pays more, and I've experienced this. I've seen it firsthand. I haven't put my money in one or two properties, and over time, whether you want to liquidate it, you are getting, the multiplier effect is pardon my words, it's crazy, unbelievable, right? So having said this, looking at the restrictions when it comes to land ownership, whether as it relates to a Nigerian or to an alien. So we will take it one after the other, a national and a foreigner, or an alien, if you want to put it like that. So, as a citizen of Nigeria, there is no restriction whatsoever, as it relates to the ownership of property, real estate, landed properties, because even the Land Use Act, and as a matter of fact, every other law in Nigeria are made for the benefit of the Nigerian people, right? So I'll first, just to emphasize, as a Nigerian, there is no limitation whatsoever. Now, by the provisions of the Land Use Act, the ownership of land has been entrusted to the governor of every state. That's a provision. But that entrusting into the hands of the governor is for the benefit of the people, for the benefit of the people. So it means that even though the governor is holding those properties in trust, but it is for the benefit of, in trust. It is in trust, people. Before the enactment of the Land Use Act in 1978, maybe we should go into history a bit. You see that families, or the ownership of land basically would be according to, first settlement. My family had been
Yes.
on this land by, my great grandfathers, settled on this land, from way back and all of that. So there was that freehold, in terms of ownership of land.
Yeah.
But to regulate the ownership of land, especially for the benefit of the people, the law was now, enacted to regulate things. Now, people that owned properties, they are not talking of every, all these other free properties and all of that. Some, people held properties already. I haven't built my land. I mean, my house on the property. Government won't come and say, we are taking over, to hold in trust for everybody. Okay. So there was
Yeah.
that deemed right of occupancy given to everybody, or people that had already owned their land. There was that deemed,
Yeah.
for every other land, now,
Are these the people they call
yeah,
customary
we
landowners?
can call them, customary landowners. Yes, and even a lot of people with the deemed right of occupancy still, went regularized to get proper documentation. But for the purpose or for the benefit of the land user, government, the governor then held land in trust, right? It means that beyond that 1978, anybody that is that is now interested to own land may apply to the governor for that right of occupancy. Once that right of occupancy has been given, then it will be evidenced by that certificate of occupancy. All right. But the thing is, I mean, it also comes to the issue of you having resources to be able to also acquire. So once you have the capacity to acquire any land, you can approach the government and, get that right of occupancy on the property you are interested in. So far, there are no, because there are some commitments on land, whether government has designed some particular land for some particular purposes, then they will tell you this land is a no-go area. For those ones that are free, every Nigerian have a right to acquire and to own them. All right. So that's for, talking generally as the law relates to Nigerian citizens now. So let's take it a bit, beyond Nigeria, or before we go outside of Nigeria. You asked the question. Somebody who is not resident in Lagos, for example, maybe resident nowhere, can they acquire land in Lagos State?
Yes.
So far,
Yes.
you're a Nigerian, all right? Because the law says for the benefit of all Nigerians. It didn't say for the benefit
All
of Lagosians.
Nigerians.
Okay, so it means that as a Nigerian, you have every right. It is even a right that is, guaranteed by the Constitution. You have the right to own properties, even artificial persons. Not even talking of natural persons, as you and I. Artificial persons like companies can hold properties. So not to talk of Nigerians, you have the right to acquire, property anywhere in Nigeria. So far, you have the means, and you are going about it, in the legal way. So now let's take
Legal
it
way.
outside of, beyond Nigerians. Do foreigners have right to acquire, properties in Nigeria? That's another very interesting topic. I will tell you that most of the nations of the world these days, they're very liberal when it comes to ownership, right? Encouraging even non-nationals to acquire properties in their countries. All right. But there are still some countries that, have restricted ownership of properties. Once you are not a
Right.
national of that country, you may not be able to acquire anything. But most of the other developed, countries, they don't have any problem with foreign nationals owning properties like UK, China, the US. That's why you would even see all these UK real estate companies coming to woo Nigerians to come and invest in real estate in the UK.
Yeah. To come and invest there, yeah.
So because there are no restrictions,
as long as you have the financial means
it's
and your means is
legit.
legit.
They can. I mean, you provide your source of wealth. They check your funds out, but you have, they are very, they receive people with open arms to acquire properties. Now, how does this apply in Nigeria? Do our laws allow for foreigners to be able to acquire land in Nigeria? We'll be looking at, maybe we'll just touch on 3 basic laws, that might be very educative. The first is the land tenure, laws of northern Nigeria. Okay, these laws had been in existence way before the enactment of the Land Use Act. Mainly, people even argue that the Land Use Act only, came to formalize or legalize or to nationalize these, land tenure laws of the northern Nigeria, right? And what does this law say particularly? It says that every native, use the word native and non-natives, native and non-natives. Natives in the context of that law is saying that so far you are, or your parents are indigenous to any of the states in the north, then you have the right to own properties anywhere, in that region. And non-native in the context of that law means that if your parents don't have any, link, they are not indigenous to that northern part, it means that you can only, so there is a restriction. It means that you can only acquire property. So this would also apply to, the initial points that spoken about. Mentioning that you as a Nigerian, can you go anywhere in across Nigeria and acquire land? Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But
yeah, like you said, in most
right,
countries.
yes. But I'm even now saying, even within Nigeria, as they apply to Nigerians now. Initially I said, yes, everybody, you can move around, acquire property so far you have the means. But by the provisions of that land tenure laws of the northern Nigeria, 1963, I think,
Northern
yes.
Nigeria.
Natives, you have the free will, you have the freedom, you have the right to acquire. Non-native, there is a restriction. It means that if you're a non-native, what's the definition of that non-native? Your parents are not, related to any part or not indigenous to any part of that, region. So it means that you are a non-native, so to speak, you are an alien. All right. So this also means that before you can apply or you can own any property there, you need to apply to the minister. So it's the minister that can now give that right of occupancy, for you to be able to acquire. You get it. So that's about the only restriction. Now, let's come back to other states, FCT. We have the land acquisition of land by aliens, acquisition of land by alien laws of Lagos State, or the acquisition of land by aliens act of the FCT. Now, the restriction here is this: as a Nigerian, that one is talking about non-native and natives. But when it comes to these acquisition of land act and the law, the FCT and other states, it only restricts nationals. I mean, foreign nationals. All right, but not this one saying native or non-native and all of that. Now, we can still say that, yeah, the law might be for the benefit of, would it be for for the benefit of the people living in the state? But, the wordings of that law didn't say for Lagosians, okay? But the only restriction that is very obvious under that law, will be the restriction against foreigners. So before any foreigner cannot just come and say you want to, acquire land. Okay? Then you can't just go to any Omonile, for example, or you go to anybody privately to say you want to acquire land. All right. The only way you can do this legally is, whether whatever you want to acquire is under 3 years. Under 3 years. So it means that you can't, if it is something under 3 years, then yeah, it can be, because it's just, you see that agreement is clearly temporary. But if you need beyond that 3 years, it means that you need to go to the governor to get the consent, right? So the same way that, people now say, under the general arrangement anyway, once you have acquired the right of occupancy, you have your certificate of occupancy, the governor has granted you personally that right. So the fact that you have been granted that right doesn't mean that, on your own, as we call it in law, suo motu, on your own, you just transfer it to a third party. You need the consent of the governor to be able to transfer. That's why we say governor's consent. Do you have governor's consent, please, and that. That is what applies, because the governor holds that land in trust. He has given you that right to occupy that land, that right of occupancy. You have that certificate. But for you to transfer it to somebody else, you need the consent of the governor. All right. So now let's go back to acquisition by foreigner. You recall that I said, if it is an arrangement under 3 years, you may not need the to approach the government, because it's clearly very temporary. But if it is beyond, a foreigner needs the consent of the governor to be able to acquire that land. But this does not affect, say, a Nigerian living in diaspora. You are Nigerian.
Right.
What is not happening is the fact that you are not staying fully in Nigeria. But that, does not take away the fact that
you're not within the geographical zones
definitely
of Nigeria.
So, but it doesn't take away your citizenship. So it means that from wherever you are all over the world, you can acquire. All right. But for a foreigner, a non-Nigerian, the Immigration Act will define an alien as a non-Nigerian, Nigerian or a non-Nigerian.
Yeah.
So, but for a non-Nigerian, you need the consent of the governor to be able to, to acquire any property in Nigeria. Now, the biggest of this, in this entire thing is this: a foreigner cannot hold that property beyond 25 years. That's the provision of that acquisition of land by aliens, laws of Lagos State, FCT. Right. That's the restriction. As a foreigner, you can introduce anybody or bring anybody in to come and acquire property in Nigeria. But it's important to also educate them. For us to be able to do this legally, you need to get a consent, of the governor. You need to also understand the fact that you might not be able to hold this, property beyond 25 years. But I believe that, it is usually open for renewal. Upon expiration, you can also.
I was going to ask there.
You can always apply for renewal. Just like any other Nigerian too, that you have the right of occupancy for 99 and you have years, 99 years, less 1 year. Upon expiration, you can always reapply, renew, pay the necessary fees to the government. So, but for
I would interject there. That's 99 years tenure. has always been debated that what happens after 99 years. So if you're renewing, have you had any experience of anybody, that has renewed?
Yeah. A lot of people, you see that, especially when government wants to drive development in a certain area. It happened in Ado Ekiti, for example, during the time of Ayoshe. The entire, what do they call that? Oja Okesha,
Okay.
Now, he mandated them. You people need to improve these your properties, or we will take them. And the only way he could exercise such right would be to have checked their, period of occupancy. And I'm sure a lot of them had already expired. Whatever, deemed right of occupancy they gave to them would have gone beyond that 99 years. So people were just holding that land. So if you could not maintain this land and improve it, we are trying to drive urbanization, and you guys are holding dilapidated buildings, saying you are holding to the legacy of your parent, and the properties are rotting away and not helping, to give the state a facelift. It will take it away from you. Okay? So government would exercise that right to look at the period or the tenure. But the thing is, you can always apply to the government. And I've never seen, sincerely, except where government have overriding public interest, to say, okay, sorry, we are withdrawing these rights because of this reason or that reason. But without a genuine reason, government won't just say, we are revoking your right of occupancy on the property. Okay?
So basically, that statement somebody made was just is something that some people should just discard.
Like,
he doesn't hold water.
Or ask it. You said they asked the question, what happens after 99 years?
No,
Okay.
not that. This concern stemmed from a statement that you're not an indigene of this particular place. We are going to collect all your property.
No, it can.
That has been the concern, and people are running away from this particular location, from Lagos.
For instance, well, anybody can, choose to challenge the law by making inciting comments, because I would say that's an inciting comment, and nobody has the right to evict any other citizen of Nigeria from any part of the country. You understand that? Yeah, unrest, volatility in some areas. Yeah, people are scared, because we are the minority in this area. Even though you are the minority in that area, does not take your citizenship away from you. It means that as a Nigerian, you have a right under the law to live anywhere in Nigeria. Even if you have the mind or the means, you have every right to even live in Sambisa. It is your right. You have the mind and the right. So it is your, go and challenge Boko Haram and say, as a Nigerian, I'm taking, you have that right. So not to talk of the peaceful Lagos, right? Anybody can acquire property anywhere. Nobody has that right, except they want to do it by way of violence. And clearly that's against the law. That's running foul of the law. And anybody that does that is ready to also face the full wrath of the law. So every Nigerian has the right. Absolutely. All right. So let's go back to the discussion on foreigners acquiring land. We have looked at the land tenure laws of the northern Nigeria, how relate to who are aliens, who are non-aliens. We have looked at the acquisition of land by aliens in laws of Lagos State. The same law applies across all the states in Nigeria and the FCT. All right, and the restrictive provisions under those law, meaning that a foreigner needs the consent of the governor to be able to to acquire a property. Now, what does the Land Use Act say? The Land Use Act, by provisions of I think Section 46, every person, even including non-Nigerians can acquire property in Nigeria. All right. Although, there has been a lot
Yeah.
of controversies as far as the land users is concerned, as those provisions relate to foreigners, because that the
Right.
provisions of the land use act in the beginning is saying that the land will be held, right, by government for the common benefit, of all Nigerians, all Nigerians. So they are
Right.
arguing that the law is saying for all Nigerians, not for non-Nigerians. All right. But
Right.
that law now, goes on to say that even non-Nigerians, all right, can acquire,
Right.
the property. All right.
Right.
Upon the enactment of the land use act, it stays there. Even all these states law that are, that have different restrictive provisions. Even the land use is saying those state laws have to be amended, whether by way of alteration, whether by way of omission, whether to be able to, also run without contradicting the provisions of the Land Use Act. Okay, so where these controversies, come from, would be that even Nigerian courts now feel that, or they are saying that the bringing of the Land Use Act does not take away the efficacy of these state laws. Introducing Land Use Act is not saying that those other state laws do not have effect anymore, as far as those restrictions are concerned. And there are different cases, like two
Right.
different Supreme Court cases, where the courts have ruled that foreigners, based on the provisions of the Land Use Act, do not have that right to acquire land in Nigeria. All right, based on all these based on all these restrictions, that we have in all the state laws. Okay. Now the provisions
Right.
of the Land Use Act is saying that foreign nationals can acquire properties in Nigeria. Okay. Subject to what did the word say again? The National Council of State making provisions for the legal framework, to be able to effectively, make that transfer happen. All right. Put in my own words now. So they are saying there is a lacuna because there's no legal framework anyway, based on the provisions of that Land Use Act. Even so,
Right.
if a foreign national says they are acquiring property, what is the legal framework to try to grant that right of occupancy? Because there's no legal framework. The only frameworks available are the frameworks of these state laws, and they have those restrictions in them. So there is that controversy. And the foreign national hold property, can they not hold property? But Supreme Court has said that they cannot hold property by the provisions of the Land Use Act, because it's saying that the provisions of the Land Use Act have not taken or abrogated the powers of these state laws. That is the land tenure of the northern Nigeria, the land acquisition by aliens of the Lagos state and other states, and and what have you. Because if you are acquiring any property, it means that you still go through the state. Okay. So
Yeah.
in effect, it means that those restrictions are still there. So there's that lacuna. Maybe until the National Council of States now, the national, will now make, or create the framework for transferring or giving or granting right of occupancy to foreigners. But as it stands, there's that controversy. All right. If in fact there was a
Right.
case, Abner, something, like that, for a foreigner, I've been in Nigeria, acquired hectares of land in Kaduna. Okay. Yes, he
Okay.
held that land, and over time he applied to Kaduna State to be granted right of occupancy on that property, and the state refused that by the provisions of the law that applies in that state, it did not have that right, to acquire property in Nigeria, because as a foreign national you cannot. So what he did was to transfer the entire property to his company. All right. So I mean, a Nigerian company, even though yes, he, as a shareholder and all of that. And don't forget that we have also mentioned that artificial persons as well can acquire property. So transferred the property to the company, and the company got the right of occupancy on that property. Now, with that arrangement, when you now retired and retired from the company, maybe you wanted to now say the area company, I'm done from here. I need my land back. And they say, oh guy, you do not have any land here. You don't have any land because the right of occupancy was granted to the company, not you. It took the case all the way from the state high court, he lost, went to the appeal court, he lost, and went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, emphasized the provisions of these state laws. As a foreigner, you do not have the power, to acquire property. So you see that what has the provision of the law, but people still find ways around owning properties and also enjoying the benefit.
Yeah.
But what has been advocated, is the fact that our laws should be made in such a way that it would be attractive to foreigners, to want to come to Nigeria to
For them to
invest,
come and invest
for economic,
in Nigeria, in the
right?
country.
Because a lot of arguments have also gone to the effect that you are saying, okay, the provisions of the law is saying for the benefit of Nigerians. If you have foreign direct investment in Nigeria by a foreigner acquiring a property and developing something, maybe come and drive to drive the economy of, or agricultural purposes and all of that, would it not be for the benefit of Nigerians? So the law
Nigerians will benefit.
the law should be interpreted in such a way that it will be that to the benefit of those Nigerians. It's not just for Nigerians to hold that land, even when they are not contributing anything to the economy. When a foreign national can come by way of investment to acquire properties and had something substantial to the economy, would it not be to the benefit of Nigerians? So it's just based on the interpretation of that law. All right. But strictly, if you interpret the law in the strict wordings, then it will be telling you that no, foreign nationals cannot acquire property in Nigeria.
Cannot acquire property.
So yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've taken all. You've practically touched on all my questions.
Anyway, so just for
and 1 hour is almost gone. So, but before we go, because this I just want this to just be within an hour. I don't know. Maybe we might have to do part 2 of this, because there are 1 or 2 other questions that I would like for us to look at, but we've run out of time now. Documentation, is one very paramount aspect of property acquisition.
Right.
We cannot dive into that today. I don't know, maybe at your convenience, maybe you grant us that what's it called, honor to have you back to come and shed light on documentation from the legal standpoint. As real estate expert, I can begin to tell this person, the essence of due diligence, documentation, and all that. But hearing it from a legal perspective would actually be very, very valuable.
Right.
Very valuable.
Yeah. So
thank you so much.
So before we go, documentation is even everything. Now, to acquire, it means that you've transferred your resources and all of that. I'm sure even the law saying that the governor must consent or put hands in whatever
Yeah.
transaction is even for your benefit, because that's what solidifies the right you feel that you're acquiring that property. Because what do you have to show? That you have actually, acquired it. All right. So
Acquire. Yeah.
documentation is everything from due diligence all the way, and even the way people do due diligence. I'm handling a transaction presently, right? And the person on the other side, I've been wowed. When they say somebody is thorough when it comes to due diligence, property that I mean, by all means, nobody wants to defraud anybody, but the person to the very last dot, So you cannot take that away, because you don't know what might happen later in the future. You might think it's not just about today, and your documentation is everything, and property business,
Yeah.
it survives everybody. All right. It survives everybody.
Like you have some of those family you hear from this person who say the person you bought that property from the father does not even
Right.
know what he's doing. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that would not be strange to you. You
Yeah.
must have heard that.
People get to a
That.
certain age, they're even demented, even they are not dead. I mean,
Mm,
people are holding land that were bought by their great grandfathers, and the properties are still standing. Maybe they are improving on it and all of that. But everything is, about the documentation. Because if you don't have the correct documentation, even after 30 years, somebody is coming to come and challenge you. And, yeah,
mm,
it's whoever has the superior
absolutely.
title. Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
so anytime we can talk about that, and I'll be glad to come around again and share knowledge.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister
No
Ayo.
problem.
Barrister and solicitor. The
Yeah,
law.
no
Thank you.
problem, everyone. Yeah. So
Bye.
anytime. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Regards. Yeah. Bye.